conduct?
I've never committed a crime in my life.
You're on probation.
Yeah.
How'd you get on probation?
You
volunteer for it?
Volunteer.
You volunteered to do 12 years probation?
Yes, sir.
For burglary?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, man. A little bit up in here, huh? Yeah, you sure you don't have a fire in here, man? It's a lot of smoke coming out of the car. You ever see that movie with Cheech and Chong and they can't even see driving down the road? That's what it looks like when I pop the door open and all the smoke came out. Feeling good?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to JGs Lounge. We got a new show for you guys. I don't know if I want to call this a podcast or a game show because I feel like it kind of catches both aspects. This is creating the culprit, everybody. This is a new addition, and I'm really excited about it. I've been talking to the admins, both Sean Shank and Ev.O.Lution, who's here with me tonight about the show. So they're kind of aware of what's going on, but I'm going to throw a little curveball at them. But before we get to that point, Ev.O.Lution, man, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. I was just hanging out with my son, watching movies, and then you let me know you wanted to do this. I'm like, okay, let's go for it. But yes, it's been a good day of relaxation and just looking forward to another new show.
Man, it's crazy because when I first started, doing the podcast, I was like, man, I've got all these ideas, but I need to be consistent with this one show. But when I came up with the network idea, I'm like, no, now I just do all the shows because they're all going to the network. And we're streaming them sometimes live. Now we got some that are pre-recorded, which is fantastic. But we're putting it out there for people to see. People are enjoying it, and I couldn't be happier with how JG's Lounge is turning out, man.
Yeah, same here, man. I've seen the growth in just almost year. I can't believe it's been a year already. Be a year for me on the 21st with my shows, but maybe a month or two before that in all my total activity with the network. I'm really excited about what's coming in the future. And to see it grow that much in a year is crazy, man. It's crazy.
And even the fan base, not even that it's huge, but like we actually have built a fan base that communicates with us, whether it's at work, on social media. It doesn't matter; they're everywhere, and it's not about being massive. It's about interacting with the people that watch what we do and enjoy what we do, and that's going to continue to grow. Whether it's 1 step or 20 steps, we're only going up. So
that's it.
And we're actually, I do want to give a big shout out to Ev.O.Lution because he's even got another idea for a new show. Why don't you kind of give everybody a rundown of your ideas? This is still very rough in the making. I think we kind of have an idea what we're wanting to do here. We don't have a title yet, but Ev.O.Lution, why don't you tell everybody what you're thinking?
Well, basically, the conversation we shared was about the episodes that we've done already that people want to elaborate on, or we want to elaborate on, to go a little bit deeper in those episodes, and so that people can have a chance to comment or have a conversation about what they missed, because we kind of shoot through that stuff pretty quick sometimes because of the time constraints. But it'll give everyone an opportunity to dig a little deeper and share their comments on the shows that we've done already. So I think it'll be great for how the initial thought process is on setting it up. But once we get it all together, I think it'll be pretty exciting.
Yeah, man. And I actually, I told you I enjoyed it. I didn't really say much more, but I've been thinking about it. And the more I think about it, I'm like, man, we could do a couple different directions with this. Okay. It could be something that we talked about on the show that we wanted to elaborate on. It could be a comment that popped up on one of the shows. Like if you and I go back and look at shows and we see a comment, we're like, you know what, let's push on that. Let's go a little deeper. So it could be an interactive experience depending on, how many people give us, questions or anything that they want us to dive more in. So that way we can kind of interact with the people. And I love it. I think it's a great idea, man. And,
Thank you.
we got consistently inconsistent still going. Of course, it's inconsistent, but we're still doing it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into creating the culprit.
All right.
All right, so I've told you a little bit about this. There's a lot of dumb criminals out there. There's TV shows, there's social media clips where people are getting busted for stupid stuff, or headlines that are just absolutely outrageous. And one thing I've noticed about a lot of them is that they are unknown people. They don't give the names of a lot of them. Sometimes they do.
Mhm.
We're not going to go with those ones. I'm basically each episode, I'm going to pick a headline of something dumb that a person did, whether they were arrested or not, or just caught. And we are going to create the background to the person, hence creating the culprit.
Okay.
Now, there's a twist here. We're going to go based off birth, youth, so elementary school age, middle to teenage years, and then right before the event. To go into that, I'll start out with their birth time, and then you'll go into the next step. And we have to create the story based off either personal experiences or something that we know of, whether it be a family member or just someone that you know, and you don't have to say their names. You don't have to say who it was, but you have to give an explanation behind your bit.
Okay.
How does that sound?
Okay. It sounds like it's interesting.
So not only are we creating a culprit, we are getting you to kind of confess some of the things that you've experienced in your life through this show. So it's going to bring back memories, and it can be just a little hint of something that happened. So like you can create the story based off like somewhere you lived, or again, an event, or just a story that you know of. And again, if you want it to be an anonymous thing, that's fine, but you have to give us an explanation behind the story that you picked.
Okay. All right.
Okay. The headline for today's episode is: a driver in Colorado tried to switch seats with his dog to avoid a DUI arrest.
Okay.
So, right off the bat, what are your thoughts just off the title?
It looks like trouble for the driver no matter what. It's very creative. It's like one of those things that you would see on one of those cop shows where people do ridiculous things to try to get out of the trouble they're in. But yeah, it's very creative to switch seats with the dog to make it look like the dog is driving instead of them. I don't see that working out.
No, it definitely does not. The cops do get a good laugh out of it, according to the article.
Yeah, very, very creative on the culprits part.
All right. Yes, I agreed. No better way to admit to being drunk than to putting your dog in the seat thinking that would work.
I think that's a way to admit it. I think that's actually admitting.
Yes. I just imagine this guy when they approach, just looking out the window like, hey, you know, how's it going, officers? No, I'm good. Look, I got a DD. We're good.
Oh, man.
I told him to pull over. Okay, he's my emotional support dog. I've been teaching him to drive for me when I'm at my lowest points and I'm relapsing. You know, going out getting drunk at the bars, spending all my money. Now I got my own DD. I don't have to worry about it.
Oh my goodness.
All right, so this is how it's going to start. Okay, I'm going to start out with creating an initial idea of this character. So we're going to say Jim. Jim is born in the outskirts of a big city in Colorado. Okay, he's in a very wealthy home with his mom. He's an only child, and he's pretty much spoiled. His mom's not the most motherly like figure. She's not really involved in a lot of his births. As a matter of fact, she basically pays staff to take care of him. You know, he's a very spoiled Jimmy, spoiled little Jimmy. And so you know, as he's getting into his youth, he's experiencing a lot of different people in his life, not really sure who's mom, who's aunt, who's grandma. And he realizes that basically whatever he wants, he gets, whether he's crying and needs a toy or another bottle. It's usually somebody that grabs it for him. And this is where I'm going with the story. So I've dated, this was a female that I dated in the past for a very brief time. She was an only child, and her mom was a dominatrix.
Oh, me?
Okay.
So are you familiar with what a dominatrix is?
Enlighten the people for those who don't know.
So a dominatrix is somebody who is hired by anyone, it doesn't matter what sex you are, to basically be punished. Whether it's doing chores around the house, picking up trash, cleaning them, getting beaten. I mean, there's different levels of being dominated. I mean, that's basically what it is.
Right.
And this girl that I dated for a brief time, her mom was a dominatrix, and she would have, you know, attorneys, some very just high up CEOs in the area that would pay her thousands of dollars to come over and do random tasks. And I remember several times where we'd be sitting on her bed and she'd open the door and guys would come in and clean up her room. And it was a normal experience. There was for the mom and the daughter. For me, like I said, we dated for a brief time. There was never a point where I was like, wow, this isn't unusual. Like, I mean, to me, it was very, very odd. So I picked that to start this off. I figured it was an interesting start. And based off of that, what do you think as a kid at that young of an age, how do you think their mentality is going to be?
Well, they're going to be a spoiled brat, of course. I think that they're going to think that they can get away with just about anything or do or experiment with anything because the mother's not close by. You know, there are people who are in place to take care of Jim, just provide basically whatever Jim wants. But what that does for Jim, it gives him the attitude that, you know, everything is given to him. So he's like, you know, I don't really like that type of life. I want to work for my own stuff, or I want to go do my own thing. So I think that's probably the direction that Jim is going.
Yeah, no, I agree. Definitely spoiled brat. Obviously, by the time he's getting into his youth and his elementary school, you know, you're gonna lead us with the elementary school experiences. But I think by that point, he's going to believe that no matter who you are, you're going to give me what I want. Sort of mentality. But let's shape this culprit a little bit more and get into his youth. You can, again, whatever you want, but it has to be somewhat factual experience or something, you know.
All right, so getting into Jim's youth, he starts to shape and form himself into like a bully type of person. So he starts to have an aggressive attitude towards his classmates, and the things that he wants, he just takes them. You know, he starts to become very aggressive in that area to just basically continue on in the I can do whatever I want attitude, or I can obtain anything that I want because of how his life started. So this is kind of his reality, even though it's affecting other people in a negative way. So how I got there is I changed schools because we moved when we were younger,
Hmm.
and the school that I started out with, of course, I knew everyone. And when you change schools, you start all over. You don't know anyone.
Right.
So of those people, there's always someone who wants to bully the new person that comes to the school. So I had to experience that, but because I'm small, right?
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest person, especially back then. I was a little tiny, skinny person. But the term you shouldn't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm that person.
Yeah.
so so I've gotten into many scrabbles with people who are way bigger than me, and I made them
Right.
look pretty bad. So that's
good.
kind of the highlight of the information behind that. What
Well,
do you
that's
think?
good. That's good because I think that's a point that a lot of people have.
Hmm.
A good direction with this step in his life, because I feel
Hmm.
like it's bringing more of a common uh, effect to a maybe less common family life
Uh-huh.
for a kid. So it's a good blend. So
Yeah.
I do like that. And I think it's a very common experience that people do experience, whether they're the
Hmm.
bully or the ones being bullied,
Right.
or even the bystanders that have experienced it and
Hmm.
witnessed it. So one thing about Jim here is that going into his, uh, his his preteen to teenage years into high school, he's got a lot of people in and out of his life. But one thing that is consistent for Jim is one of his neighbors, good Grandpa Joe. We're gonna call him Joe. We're gonna stick with J's here, okay?
Okay.
Um, he called him Grandpa Joe because he's an old man, and he was the closest thing to a parent figure that he really had, because it was the only thing that was really consistent and there when he was outside wandering.
Hmm.
He had a big old garden in the backyard. So Jim and Grandpa Joe would go out in the garden, and he'd help him, till the garden, seed the plants. And he even loved to pickle. He liked to pickle. He'd soak walnuts and pickle vegetables with big, good old Grandpa Joe. And he got to love it. He even came up with his own recipe of some pickled prunes that his grandma loved. Grandma always loved Jim's pickled prunes. Um,
Okay.
so along with being, this aggressive kid, bully at school, getting spoiled at home, he's got this other life that nobody really notices because it's the only thing consistent, and he wants it to stay that way. So he kind of
Mhm.
keeps it. He doesn't talk about it much because he enjoys it that much.
Mhm.
Now here's where I get this story that I actually, as a child, did have a neighbor. I didn't call him grandpa, but he was like a grandpa to me. And
Mhm.
he had a garden in his backyard. It's a pretty good sized garden. And I'd go and I would actually help him. A lot of those things are true. The pickled prunes are definitely out there. I've never pickled a prune in my life. I don't even know that I've ever eaten a prune. Uh, but I have experienced how to soak walnuts, break them open and dry them out. And learned how to garden. Not that I do it now, but I did back then. And it was
Mhm.
a fun experience because it was one of those things that was consistent in my life that actually wasn't bad. It was a
Okay.
memory that was pretty decent.
Sweet.
What do you got?
Uh, continuing on to the next phase, right?
Yeah. So through his high school years, that's. I mean, what do you think of that story? I mean, do you have any experience with anything like that?
Um, Not the pickled prunes. Uh,
Hey, if
but
anybody watching this has any experience with pickled prunes, I want to know about it.
uh, but to have some type of mentor who was an elderly, yeah, I think I've definitely had that experience. Um, some were not a great example,
Yeah.
and few were a great example. So I kind of gravitated towards the few who were the great example of the elderlies that were in the in the, I guess, the link of communication as I was growing up.
Right.
One was a teacher. One was just a person in the community, and one was like in the church background. So, and one was like in sports. So there was always someone there uh, as like a person to look up to, or just like a role model to ask questions or have conversations when the family members were not around. So I would really not latch on to people like that, but just respect them and know that they were there if I ever needed them. So yeah, definitely.
All right. Yeah. No,
Mhm.
that's great, man. And it's
Mhm.
I'm really liking how this show's going. We're
Uh-huh.
kind of I've been wanting to make it about a half-hour show, half hour to 40 minutes. I think we're doing a hell of a job with it
Okay.
already. And I'm really loving kind of the mix that we're doing here.
Hmm.
So we got to the point where he's basically graduating high school.
Uh-huh.
Given whatever he's spoiled. He's a bit of a bully. And at the same time, he has a soft spot. But where are we going from here, man? Well, before the events that unfold, where does Jim go from high school, man?
I'm gonna follow your lead on the pickled. Uh, I'm just gonna take off with that. So Jim likes to experiment with different things when it comes to uh, creating drinks. I'll say it like that.
Okay.
And he starts to dabble into things like moonshine. Uh, so
All right.
so he gets pretty good at that, and taste tests his work, of course, uh, which starts him down the road to becoming a bit, what do you call it, needy for that in his life,
Yeah.
because that's what he's doing, and he likes what he's doing, and he likes
So
the
is he
results.
doing this for a career? Like, is he like a entrepreneur? Is that what we're gonna go with?
Uh, let's say it's a hobby.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm just trying to see like where he is, where his priorities are here. So this is just a hobby. All right. Cool.
Yeah. So this is starting to be a hobby for him, and so it takes him down the road to where he ends up in the initial beginning story that we were talking about. so so where I get that from is I used to work with a guy. Not going to give the location of the area, but they dabbled in mixtures of alleged beverages. So they would always try to, bring samples for people to try, but I never did. I just, stood by and watched everybody else just, either they just watched it or took a sip or whatever. But the reaction of everybody was really the funny part, because apparently, moonshine is a lot stronger than everything else. So that's kind of
Yeah.
where I grabbed that information from.
What do you gravitate? What do you gravitate towards something else? Um, it's funny that you go from pickling to creating cocktails and kind of getting obsessed with that as a hobby.
Mhm.
That's clever, because I actually was a bartender for years,
Mhm.
and while I was a manager, and I'd always have like a second job bartending or whatever. And there were places where I worked at a place called Cheeseburger in Paradise, where we were trained to like stack cups of beer and throw them across the bar, like just for flair, a little bit
Mhm.
of just the experience for the guests. We'd make
Mhm.
crazy cocktails, and we were very pushed towards creating new drinks. So that's kind of what I was thinking while you were saying that,
Okay.
about a lot of the experiences I had that were um you know creating cocktails, mixing flavors. And it made me at one point where I wanted to, I graduated with a culinary degree, and I wanted to start a bistro mixology food truck for like private events.
Oh wow.
So it wouldn't be a set menu, but it'd be a set price, and then you pick the entrees based off what's in season or whatever we came up with, and then we would pair it with a cocktail. So each thing would be paired with a cocktail. We do like private events and stuff, and actually that's something I still kind of want to do at some point down the road.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, it's I think it's something unique. There's a lot of food trucks out there that have set prices and set menus, but I think that the experience itself, knowing that you have a set price, so you're like, hey, you either get this price range, you get this price range, or you get this price range, and here's your options of entree, sides, and a couple cocktail options. And then for me, it's great because from a culinary background, just like doing podcasts, the end results and not just the way it tastes, but like the way it's presented, that I love, man. I have like I just, that feeling you get when somebody enjoys what you do.
Absolutely.
Even when you enjoy what you do, it feels fantastic.
I agree. I agree.
All right. Sorry about the tantrum. Not a tantrum, but I went on a little rant there for a minute. I mean, all right. So let's get up to date, man. We've gotten through his childhood. So basically, he's got a thing for drinks. He likes to get a little buzzed, trying some new flavors. And the day of the event, that we've been talking about, he wakes up. He went over to his mom's house the night before. They were up late watching movies, having some of his creative cocktails, and he got a little too drunk to drive home. Right, a little bit too drunk. I mean, they had a few bottles of moonshine between the two of them.
A few.
So he wakes up about 2 in the afternoon, the day of the event, and he wakes up because he hears some glass shattering. He goes in the other room, and his mom's tossing jars on the floor for one of her clients to go clean up. Okay, makes a huge mess, and it really pisses Jim off because Jim spent some time creating these cocktails. Okay, I mean, he put a lot of he went, even talked about it with his mom the night before, so he was pretty furious that she decided to waste it on something like that. So he decides to grab one of the jars that's not broken and go for a drive. Okay, so he's cruising down the roads. He doesn't realize that he's still pretty hungover as is. He cracks open this bottle of, let's say, strawberry prune moonshine.
Okay. Wow.
That sounds delicious, man. Talk about masking that alcohol with some good old prune and strawberry flavor. That sounds fantastic. If I was the officer that pulled him over and that's the smell that I got off his breath,
ooh,
I don't even know. I'd probably think about taking him to a psych ward.
No kidding. That's rough. That's rough.
So he's driving. He lives in the suburbs of town, and he's kind of on the outskirts, and he has to hit his brakes because this mutt runs out, and it's like a 30-40 pound mutt, and it's only got 3 legs. And this is where the compassionate side of Jim goes, man, I could save this dog. I'm drunk, but I'm going to save this dog. I mean, this dog's probably fine. It's probably some neighbor that's in the area's dog. But Jim's too messed up to even acknowledge that. He's just like, man, this is a 3-legged dog. I need to save him. Okay. So he goes and he grabs this 30-40 pound mutt, throws in his passenger seat, and he has never felt better. So he's driving. He's driving. He's petting this dog like it was the dog he's had for years. Doesn't even know what the hell he's gonna do with it. So he's taking another swig of his moonshine, and he sees those red and blue cherries flashing behind him. And his only reaction is, you know what? I saved your life. Now you're gonna save mine. And that's when the cops walk up on him.
Nice. Very nicely done.
Thanks. That was definitely creative. Have you ever been pulled over? And all you have
Yeah.
to do is say yes or no. You don't have to tell a time. But
Yeah. I was pulled over while I was walking. So even in my life, you don't even need a vehicle to get pulled over, just
right.
depending on where you are. But yeah, I literally got pulled over for walking down the street.
You know, it's funny. I've had the same thing happen.
Yeah.
I was living, and actually, that's funny because I had another story I was going to tell because I've actually been pulled over a few times. But this one time in particular, I was living in Lawrence, Kansas. And I'm walking down the street. It's like 5 a.m. I'm walking to work.
Mhm.
Middle of winter. It's like probably February,
Mhm.
maybe March. And I'm walking to work, and this is all you can see. Like, I'm not joking you. I even had headphones on. I was listening to a CD player, and I'm walking to work.
Mhm.
And I'm walking past this gas station, and these cops pull up into the gas station right in front of where I'm walking past. And they get out of the car, and they just approached me. They might have been saying something, but I had my headphones on, so I didn't hear what they were saying.
Mhm.
And I take them off, and I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" You know, and they said, "Do you have your license on you?" And I said,
Wow.
"What?" And
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, your ID. Do you have your ID?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Why?"
Mhm.
Well, one of the stores down the road got broken into last night, and you fit the description.
Wow.
And again,
You know,
this is it. Like, this
I,
is all they have.
I want to interject there because that's funny because I was walking home from work and I had all my gear on and it was late at night, between 11 and midnight. But I got the same thing, they were, I looked like someone that they were looking for. And I'm like, there's no way. I don't fit the description of anybody anywhere in this country right now, let alone China. Uh, don't give me that mess. I'm not falling for that, but I thought it was funny and ridiculous at the same time.
Yes.
I had on welder gear. I was a welder at the time. Uh, so for them to be looking for somebody walking down the street at that time of night with welding gear, there's only one place you could be coming from, and that was where I was working. So, so yeah, I just
Uh,
think that's crazy. But
that
yeah,
is
they asked
crazy.
they asked for my ID as well. I'm like, why? I'm just walking. I'm not. What if I don't have ID?
Yeah,
You don't need ID to walk. But
right.
yeah,
You do.
funny.
It is
It,
funny, and
mhm.
I was actually pretty pissed off at him. I'm
Oh
not gonna
yeah,
lie,
oh
especially
yeah.
because I knew I was right. Like, I knew that
Hmm.
they had nothing. I
Hmm.
mean, I didn't do anything wrong. I was walking to work, and when they said that I looked like somebody, that just triggered me. I
Yeah,
mean, how can you do anything based on
uh,
this? That makes
nothing. There's nothing you
absolutely
can
no
do.
sense. No
Yeah.
sense at all. So I demanded them give me a ride to work because I was like, I'm gonna be late now, and they did. They gave me a ride to work.
This is so funny because I asked them to give me a ride home because they detained me. I didn't get the ride though. They just let me go.
Oh man. Oh.
It's
Isn't that
funny how
funny? Like
it's
how
just,
close those are.
yeah, it's crazy. But
I mean, and it's funny that you mentioned like in the area that you were in because for
mhm,
me, I was in a college town. So okay, yeah,
mhm,
there's gonna be some college idiots that do stuff like that.
mhm,
I understand that. But just the fact that all you can see is my eyes and you approach me with that,
yep.
like you were just fishing for something. That's all you were doing.
No,
That's
no
literally
kidding.
all you're doing.
No kidding. And how many officers approached you? Was it like one
It was
car,
two. It was one car,
two?
but it was two cops.
Yeah, it was like four for me. It was one initially, and then they just kept pulling up, pulling up, pulling up. Yeah,
That just frustrate me even more, man.
I mean, I had to keep my composure because of the time, and I was
Uh,
by myself. You know how things can go and
mhm.
spin off and go in the wrong direction really quickly.
Yes.
But yeah, I was fortunate to use my intellect
Mhm.
and got away with just what do you call it? Just a post. They just interrupted my time for a little bit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's frustrating, but Let's get back on the
Topic.
topic. Here. Good old Jim here just got arrested with a 3-legged dog driving the car. I think that the story we created for Jim lines up pretty well for the background for anybody, and I think one thing about the show that I'm really going to enjoy as we continue doing this, whether it's just, I'd love to have you on other ones as well, obviously.
Absolutely.
No matter who the guest is. I think one thing I enjoyed most about Jim's story is that we actually came up with stories that we forgot about or just was sitting back there and we just decided to use it. And I think that that's going to make this show very creative, not just in the culprit, but in the guest and the host of the show.
Absolutely. I agree. Great idea, man.
Thank you. And to everybody that's been tuning in tonight, we appreciate you. Everybody that's going to tune in. I say tonight, even though it's a pre-recorded show, but this is tonight, okay? Or last night, maybe for you. But I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys are stick around for more Ev.O.Lution. I appreciate you being the first guest on Creating the Culprit.
Glad to be the first guest.
Yeah, man. And some great stories, great experiences. And until next time, everybody, we will see you around.